Hey there. Welcome to my little corner of the universe. I'm FN. Today we are going to go over what has happened in the Brooks trial over the course of the last 2 days. I'm focusing on the controversy regarding a mysterious subreddit post, which was purportedly created by a member of the jury. To start off the video, we are going to watch what happened yesterday, then we'll move on to what happened earlier today, Wednesday the 26th. But let's roll with it, and I'll make comments where appropriate.
Everything about me is fake.
Provided to me, which was an email, and then the attachment, which is a color print off. Looks like the person took a screenshot, and that the anonymous post claimed to be a member of the jury on the case, and here are my thoughts on the trial and on this subreddit. And apparently, again, it's a subreddit called Justice for Daryl. All those Justice, the number 4, and Daryl, all no spaces. I then had contact with Captain Dussault, advised him that this should be investigated, and basically turned over the matter to law enforcement for a full investigation. At this point, or at that point, I made a determination based upon my review of the information that I would not stop what was happening in terms of the trial with the instructions to the jury and ultimately the closing arguments, and then turning the case over to the jury for deliberations. And of course, I am concerned about the integrity of these proceedings, and I will take whatever action that I deem appropriate once a full investigation is done. But at this point, there is no, I would say, credible information that this is in fact a member of the jury. But I will leave that for law enforcement to determine, and of course, if need be, at the conclusion of the case, when the jury reaches a verdict, I certainly will consider whether any questioning of the jurors at that point is warranted. So that's the information I wanted to provide. Again, copies of this information will be provided to the parties, and there is a full investigation underway by the Sheriff's Department. I have no further information about it at this time. I will not be the judge that will further be reviewing it in terms of any requests related to that investigation. I will simply be handling whether any requests as it relates to this case in particular. And I hope we have the copies for the parties. And we'll provide those. Go ahead.
I'm making sure you was
Go ahead.
first. What is this?
All I can tell you, sir, is that there is apparently on the internet, on a site, or maybe it's an application, I'm not entirely sure, called Reddit. There's a subreddit that is entitled Justice for Daryl, and it was on that subreddit that someone wrote an anonymous post claiming to be one of the jurors. That, of course, would be a violation of the rules that I set up for the jurors, which is why I turned over the information to law enforcement so they could make a full and complete investigation.
For the record, I accept for value in return for value these documents. I'm confused.
At this point, sir, I'm providing the information. I trust that the parties will review it, and if a party believes that any request needs to be made of this court, then an appropriate request will be made. But at this point, I'm just advising the parties of the information that I have. And I will add this. I will, of course, It's important that the results of any investigation be turned over to the parties. I don't know how long that will take, but that is also my direction. That was really the only direction I gave to law enforcement, is that the results of the investigation that be turned over to the parties.
Was this? Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Was this just found out about this morning?
Yes, the email that was sent to the clerk of court was received at 9:10 a.m. And then that email and the attachment, I'm aware of a second email that was sent to our clerk of court at 10:02 a.m. And I think when we stepped off the bench following the case being given to the jury, I was advised that other emails had been received throughout the court system, and I simply said, obviously that information needs to go to law enforcement. I haven't seen it, haven't reviewed it, but any person who works in the clerk of court's office who has received an email, that email about this topic will be forwarded to the sheriff's department. Their forensic unit is handling the investigation, to my understanding. Attorney Upper, did you have a question or something to state?
Yes, Your Honor. I just wanted to state for the record that I have also received similar emails at my office this afternoon. They were sent not to me directly, but to the district attorney's office website. And I only wanted to point out that in viewing the contents of the posting, well, first of all the emails refer to the exact same posting, and the language is the exact same in all the postings. In viewing the content of the posting, we question the veracity of the posting because it refers to things that, quite frankly, are not true. And also, upon reviewing it, Your Honor, we came to the conclusion that it does not exhibit any material prejudice against Darrell Brooks that may affect the veracity of any verdict that may be returned in this case. The posting is largely critical of the court and to some extent the prosecution, but the nature of the posting is actually in support of Mr. Brooks. That's why it's under a subreddit called Justice for Darrell. And I don't believe there's any reasonable reading of this post that would lead someone to believe that it suggests the juror harbors substantial or material prejudice against the defendant.
Thank you. I appreciate the additional record.
Can I say something, Your Honor?
Go ahead.
Just briefly skimming through it, I do want to state for the record that I have no involvement with this. I'm really like shocked like this even came to light. I will say just by skimming through it, these are definitely things that have been talked about in the court. So common sense would say that this came from someone that has either been in the court to hear what goes on in the court or a jury member. There's no other way.
Well, actually, the entire trial is being live streamed by numerous channels, all around the world. Additionally, it is a very big story, currently circulating around YouTube. There are a lot of people who have invested a great deal of time observing and reporting on this trial, who would be intimately familiar with the facts.
Well, actually, the proceedings are live streamed worldwide, Your Honor, available on YouTube worldwide, so I don't agree with that assessment.
Well, it's pretty obvious that this would come from somebody who's actually, I think it's pretty clear.
Well, I am leaving it in the hands of law enforcement to do a full and complete investigation.
That was the final word, when court adjourned on Tuesday. The judge decided to allow the jury to continue their work, and give law enforcement time to investigate the situation. Now let's see what happened earlier today, Wednesday the 26th of October.
I'm extremely concerned about this. If anything, for cautionary reasons, I believe, Your Honor, that you definitely should take a look at everything I'm saying here in these case laws and
What's the request, though, that you're making based upon the case law that you cite? I heard in there mistrial, but I want to make sure I understand your request for relief and what it is.
You say request for
Relief.
relief?
Like, what are you asking me to do based upon the information that the limited information we have about the Reddit post?
This would be the place where most attorneys would make a motion for a mistrial, based on juror misconduct. As always, I must note that this is not legal advice, it's for educational purposes only. This is standard practice and is cited in numerous reference materials. In a roundabout way, Brooks is making the motion, without stating it as such. So now let's see what happened today, Wednesday the 26th.
In this trial.
I guess my request would be, because of the concern of this, to look at a mistrial, or at the very least a discharge of the jury at this time.
The motion for a mistrial based on juror misconduct was appropriate here. However, he, again in a roundabout way, is asking that in the alternative the entire jury be dismissed, which would also mean a mistrial. But dismissal of the entire jury panel is not the correct remedy. There are alternate jurors that have been a part of the jury and can be substituted in, should any particular juror be dismissed.
So this can be resolved. This is alarming, to say the least. This post, and I don't know what Reddit is, to be honest. I've never heard of it or used it, so I don't know the extent of. It's almost like this could be like a snowball type of thing. It can start with something that's this small, and then it can snowball out of control into something totally different. I don't know the extent of this website. I don't know who. Well, I think the name of the person who sent the who alerted the clerk, of course, to this post. I think his name is in the email. But then that even begs the question of, how did this person come across this site? What is their significance to this? What is their role in this? It's just so many questions, and I mean, clearly this points at the court's integrity. It points at your integrity, Your Honor. It's alarming. It's very alarming. And if there's a chance that there can be hidden bias in this jury, it needs to be addressed now rather than later.
It is of course the judge's choice, but she could call each juror into chambers and question them regarding the subreddit post. Of course, both parties would be included in chambers, but would likely not be allowed to ask questions. If this were a normal trial, with two lawyers being present, the judge would likely allow questions from the attorneys. However, given Mr. Brooks's proclivity for ranting, I doubt she would allow questions. Again, this is not mandatory at this point, because law enforcement is investigating. But it is an available option for the judge. I don't think she would do it sua sponte. I think she would probably wait for a motion by the defense.
This is very concerning.
Well, thank you for bringing up your concerns. Let me turn to the state if they will respond, and then see what other issues they want to cover this morning.
Judge, the original post was on a subreddit thread called Justice for Daryl. That's the copy that the defendant has in front of him. That post was edited last night, claiming that it was a prank from the start and that the original poster didn't think it would get that far out of hand. The way that Reddit works, the only person who can modify the content of the original post is the original poster, and because the jurors have no access to any electronic devices, I think it's safe to say that our 12 jurors back there are not the original poster.
I will admit that I was under the impression that the jurors were returning home every night. But now that I know they were sequestered in a hotel, and they definitely did not have access to electronic devices, then there is no chance that any of the jurors was the original poster. I don't personally use Reddit on the regular, so I didn't know that only the original poster can modify messages. I did verify that information is accurate.
So I think that puts that issue pretty much to bed. It's still obviously under investigation because the court takes it so seriously, but there really is no actionable or any real reason why we should doubt the jury's being unbiased in this case.
I object to that on the grounds, Your Honor, that, like you just said, it's an investigation going on. And if there's an investigation, then that clearly says that something is amiss. We have 15. We have 15 jurors. There's still too many questions that we don't know. Too many. I don't think anything's put to bed because we don't know. It's unfair to say that the issue is put to bed when there's still so many questions left out there. I'm sure you reviewed it yourself, Your Honor. You see the language in this, whatever it is, thread. I don't know. I don't know what this is. It's clearly a post from somebody who has intimate knowledge of the trial and what's going on in the trial. I don't think, common sense would tell you that this is someone who's very close to the case, whether they were intending to be funny, whether they were intending to try to prank the court or anything like that. We don't know. That could be anybody's guess. The language in this, the way that it's formatted, they lay out 4 specific points of what they think. They point to certain language in the case. They make references to saying when we were in the room. They got certain feelings from when they specifically refer to themselves and a group. That would be we, plural. They say, and I have to admit, I am biased against the defendant for the horrible acts he did. And they attack you, Your Honor. They clearly attack you. This is if this is someone's idea of fun, is anybody's guess, but I don't believe that it is, clearly by the way it's formatted and by the language that is in it. This is clearly someone with intimate knowledge of the case and what's going on. Clearly. There's no other way to interpret this. You can tell by what they're laying out in the language that they're speaking with, that this is clearly someone close to the case. And because of that, it still has to be I'm informed of the investigation, but there's still too many questions left in the air just from this. How can we say anything's put to bed when there's still an investigation? For all we know, what if this turns up that it was someone on the jury, or what if it turns out that more people are involved in it than just whoever this anonymous person was who left the post? It's too many questions and it's too concerning. What if something like this springs up again at the last minute? We've been going through the trial now for basically 3 weeks, the better part of 3 weeks, and even in court dates leading up to the trial, we've never had anything like this happen. Nothing like this has been brought to your attention. Nothing like this has been brought before the court's attention. This just came out of the blue, and now all of a sudden it's being labeled a prank. Is that because they were found out? I mean, it begs so many questions. It's too uncertain. It's too concerning, and it's too alarming. It's too alarming to just overlook and say, "Oh well, we'll just set it to the side and let them." No, this there has to be some type of alternatives, and something has to be done. Something. And if that's a mistrial, if that's discharging a jury, if that's some other type of alternatives that can be looked at, I'm sure that these case law speaks to other options that could come into play. They deserve to at least be looked at, if anything, to protect the integrity of the trial. I find it very hard to believe that this close to the trial being over, now all of a sudden these issues are being raised. So this is obviously not a prank, and it's obvious that this is someone with intimate knowledge. It's very clear to me.
Well, let me address your concerns, sir.
While I know that an actual lawyer would have done a better job arguing the defense's position, I actually think he did an okay job for a pro se defendant. But let's listen to what the judge has to say.
Well, let me address your concerns, sir. I cannot make conclusions at this point about whether this is legitimate or a prank. What I know is as follows. I received the information about the subreddit post at approximately 9:30, 9:40 yesterday morning. I alone made the decision to withhold advising the parties because of where we were at in the trial, because there was nothing in that post, it was an anonymous post, that would lend credibility to that it was in fact one of these jurors. But out of an abundance of caution, I referred it to law enforcement, because it is very serious if the integrity of these proceedings were to be put at issue by a juror. I'd remind you, though, every single day these jurors were read the bulk of jury instruction 50. They all took an oath, and I have no reason to doubt that they would violate that oath at this time. So I took and I made the decision to withhold telling the parties because we were in the middle of instructing the jury. I was in the middle of instructing the jury, and I wasn't going to delay the proceedings because it was so speculative at that point and remains speculative at this point. As you know, the case went to the jury. I brought this up. I waited about a half an hour once the case went to the jury. Frankly, we had had a long day. I wanted to get a bit to eat, and then I wanted to come back out and make a record of what I had. Once again, the forensic unit with the Sheriff's Department has taken lead of this investigation. I'm not a part of that investigation. Law enforcement will handle it. From my perspective, not only did the Clerk of Court's office receive emails regarding this, it sounds like the District Attorney received emails. I may have even gotten one, I don't remember the time, it was later, regarding the post. Frankly, people figure out my email all the time. It was not solicited by me in any way, and I did not respond to it, and I simply forwarded that email on to law enforcement. So it's pretty clear to me that a lot of people have access to Reddit. I personally am not a user of Reddit, so I don't know the ins and outs of it, other than it is a social media site where people can create accounts and post, and there can be like chat rooms, for example, or just various, as this is called, subreddits. And at this point, you've requested a mistrial. You've requested that I discharge the jury. I'm declining to do that at this time, sir. Again, I need to make decisions based upon the record that's before me. And right now the record is speculative. There are no facts to support a mistrial or discharging the jury. I trust the parties will continue in their own independent investigations, that you will continue reviewing case law, make whatever requests that you deem appropriate. I certainly will take time to look at the cases you have cited to see if there's anything based upon the requests that you have made that I would need to further review. But at this time, I do not see grounds for a mistrial. I do not see grounds to discharge the jury. That is how I will address it at this point.
Well, there you have it. The judge found that the basis for the motion was too speculative. She ordered the investigation to proceed and allow the jury to continue its deliberations. I was in the middle of making this video when the verdict was announced. He subsequently was found guilty of all charges. But since the video contained some interesting content, I thought I would finish it and post it anyway. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, can you hit the like button and consider subscribing? As always, thanks for watching.